Hey everybody, welcome to Malt Muser Whiskey Reviews and welcome to the top 5 whiskeys that I reviewed here in 2022 on the Malt Muser Whiskey Reviews channel. Before we get into the list, I do want to just give a big shout out and thank you to all of my Patreon supporters, everybody that's given a super chat, everybody that smashed a like, and everybody that subscribed, left a comment, engaged in the channel. It has been a really great year again. And this was honestly one of the more difficult years for me to put together this top 5 because, quite frankly, I think I've had some of the best whiskeys that I've had the opportunity to try and share with everybody since I started doing this channel. So I do have my number 1 whiskey of the year here in the glass. I'm going to take a quick sip. With that, let's get into it. The first things I want to share are 2 honorable mentions. It didn't quite make the top 5 for a couple of reasons, but we're going to talk about them now. One of those is the Old Forester Birthday Bourbon 2021 version. This was given as a gift to me, and quite frankly, one of the best bourbons probably ever had, specifically from the Old Forester. It is aged 12 years, 52% ABV. These are really, really difficult to get your hands on, and if you do, you are paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for them. So I wasn't going to put it in my top 5, quite frankly, because it's a whiskey that really nobody can get their hands on, but I got to give a shout out to this Old Forester. Their deep, rich, barrel-forward notes on this really just blew my mind. One of the longest finishes I've had on a bourbon. Just all in all, one of the more perfect bourbons I've had. And while I'm not going to give it a top 5 rating, I'm going to give the honorable mention shout out to the Old Forester Birthday Bourbon. If you ever get an opportunity to get your hands on these at a reasonable price, and you are a bourbon fan, you're going to want to do it. It is just that good. Okay. I do have one more honorable mention. It's another one that was a bit pricier. I really thought earlier this year this one was going to make my top 5, but it just missed it. And that is the Balvenie Single Barrel Traditional Oak, 21 years old. It is non-chill filtered. It is bottled at 47.8% ABV. As you know, single barrel, single casks, you do get a little bit of batch variation, but I will tell you right now, when I first opened this whiskey, I thought it was good, not necessarily great, but it really, really opened up as time went on. Rich honey toffee notes, really the best things you can ask for out of the single malts from Balvenie are really on display here. I like the fact that it doesn't have any sherry influence, so you're really giving the opportunity to see how this distillery is showing their true character, which quite frankly I think is some of the best character malts out there as it interacts with this bourbon cask. These are right around that $300 mark, so again, a really, really high priced whiskey, but if you are in the market for something like that and you're a big fan of Balvenie, you really can't go wrong with this single barrel. Rich honey toffee notes all the way through it, incredibly long finish, and presented with integrity. So I'm going to give a shout out to the Balvenie Single Barrel Traditional Oak. Okay, with that, we are going to move into the top 5. Let's begin. Coming in at number 5 is a single malt whiskey that I quite frankly was stunned by the value and the presentation, and quite frankly, just the character of that. And that is the Glencadam 10 years old. This is bottled at 46% ABV. It is non-chill filtered. It is natural color. All the things you want to see in a single malt Scotch whiskey. And at a price that's incredibly affordable, right around that $50 mark here in the United States. This is a whiskey that I felt, quite frankly, retained some of the character and old school nature of the malt. It presented itself in a way that is with not only integrity, but gives it some serious character that unfortunately a lot of distilleries that are putting out whiskeys that are very more processed, you don't quite get that. With this, you're looking at zesty citrus. You're looking at some nice kind of light bourbon cask notes, all coming together really well for an enjoyable introductory whiskey, but something that actually has a couple surprises here and there. It's got depth, it's got complexity, and quite frankly, I think is one of the better 10-year-old single malt whiskeys you can get out on the market today. So with that, I got to give the number 5 spot to the Glencadam, 10 years old, 46% non-chill filtered, natural color, just the way we like it. Keep your eyes out for this Highland malt. Coming in at number 4, the green spot, Chateau Louisville Barton single pot still Irish whiskey. This one, I'll be completely honest, is one of the best Irish whiskeys that I've ever had. And this would have came up higher on the list if it wouldn't have been for the other ones that you're going to see. This is a really great take and on the character of the pot still whiskey that you get out of Green Spot, which is always a really consistent, delicious whiskey, and really showcases that unmalted and malted barley mix that kind of comes while they marry those things in their mash bill. It shows itself really, really well here, but in this bottle in particular, I think it goes to the next level. It's 46% ABV. You have this red wine cask influence. So in the addition to those classic kind of shortbread cookie, unmalted barley spice that you get out of a really nice Irish whiskey, you get a little bit extra with this red wine cask influence from Bordeaux area of France. It just absolutely kills it. Triple distilled, as every good Irish whiskey is. You will find these in that $100 to $120 mark. I've seen prices going up, but I would tell you right now, there are a couple different versions of these wine cask influenced green spots that they've put out from Middleton. The Chateau Louisville Barton Bordeaux red wine cask is the way to go. And I'm going to make sure to enjoy every last sip of this one, which is why it gets my number 4 spot here on my top 5 whiskeys of 2022. Coming in at number 3, a distillery that I have a lot of love in my heart for, and I have just been completely blown away by this expression of it. It is the Lechaig 18 years old. Lechaig, small distillery. They come out of the Isle of Man. This is the peated version from Tobermory. But this 18-year-old, I think, really takes what I already think is a great tenure. If you look back, that was in made one of my top 5s a few years back. This one, I think, just takes it to the next level with the addition of the Spanish sherry cask. It is bottled at 46.3%. It is non-chill filtered. Are you seeing a trend here? Absolutely fantastic whiskey, not an introductory whiskey for somebody that's a novice. This is something that has a lot of complexity, earthy qualities, deep sherry notes. There's these elements of barrel char, a little bit of sulfur, just a lot going on in this. And every time I pour it, I find myself more and more intrigued and wanting to have another glass of it. It's just that good. The price here in the US, you can really find these still at a really, really competitive prices, particularly for an 18-year-old whiskey, right in the maybe $110 to $130 mark, depending on where you look. I highly recommend it. This one in particular was batch number 3, but I don't think that you need to worry if you can't find this batch in particular. Keep your eyes out for it. If you're looking for a challenging dram, bit of peat, bit of sherry, you cannot go wrong with the Lechaig 18 years old, and that is why I'm going to give it my number 3 for my top whiskeys that I reviewed here in 2022. Coming in at number 2, a big peaty smoky whiskey from Islay. It is the Lagavulin 12-year-old special release 2021 version, not the 2022. It is a good whiskey, but it is not what this one is. After a couple of years of mixed reviews of their annual release of the 12-year-old single malts cask strength release from Lagavulin, the 2021, I think, was a return to form, and it did it with gusto. This one is bottled at a huge 56.5% ABV, part of the Diageo special release that came out late in 2021. I really think this, while still available, is the standard that you can get for a Lagavulin 12 these days. Full of peat, rich notes, lots of sea, kind of maritime influence, heavy peat and smoke phenols, exactly what you'd expect from Lagavulin, and a finish that you get 1, 2, even 3 swells of different kind of flavors. A lot of complexity here. I think this was again, a return to form for them. And quite frankly, I think the best Lagavulin 12 that they've put out in the last 5 years. USD these days, you can find these around that $140 to $150 mark. So you are paying a bit of a premium for it, but I am telling you, Don't let the younger 12-year-old age statement scare you away. This is worth the money. One of the best heavily peated whiskeys I've had in a long time. Lagavulins 12-year-old cask strength, 2021 release. This is my number 2 whiskey I reviewed here this year. Which brings me to number 1. This was actually a bit of a no-brainer, and I think I realized it pretty early in the year. It did have some competition, but if you are a fan of the channel, you know how high I am on the Ben Romick distillery, not only for the quality of the whiskey, but the fact that it's an affordable distillery by and large. It flies a little bit under the radar, and I think I'm honored to really present one of these as my number 1 whiskey here in 2022, and that is the Ben Romick Contrast Peat Smoke Sherry Cask Matured. Ben Romick, despite being a Speyside distillery, they put out a range of heavily peated whiskeys. And this one, I think, is the best out of all the different maturation expressions that they've put out. It is 46%. It is non-chill filtered. It's natural color. First fill sherry casks. It's got a lot of heavy peat smoke. They do things there with, kind of in an old school way. So you are getting that earthen dunnage warehouse, which definitely shows up in the flavor here. Rich complexity. This has a nice viscosity, a lot of peat. Sherry is in perfect balance, and it goes all the way through to a beautifully long finish. And the best part is that the price of this. It's really great. Over in the UK, where you can buy this or have it shipped to you in the US, you can find this around that $55 to $65 mark, which I think is an incredibly good price. They don't put age statements on it, but they do put vintages. This is this one was 9 years, so it was distilled in 2012. It gives you a ton of information. Box looks like this. I really, really was impressed by this, and it's one of the many whiskeys I've been impressed by Ben Romick. But I am honored to give this my number 1 whiskey that I reviewed here in 2022, just because I think it gives you that perfect blend of smoky, peaty whiskey, but it's not as intense as your kind of Isla cask or Isla distillery whiskeys. Plays really well with these first fill sherry casks that Ben Romick is known for. It's bottled with integrity. It's at a great price. Quite frankly, it has a lot of complexity that you can dive into and discover really at any point of where you are in your whiskey journey. So Ben Romick's Contrast Peat Smoke Sherry Cask Matured is my number 1 whiskey here in 2022. Would love to hear your thoughts on this review. Let me know in the comments. Have you had any of these? Do you agree, disagree? Would love to hear what you had to say, and feel free to share what the best whiskey you tried here in 2022 was. I'm going to enjoy the rest of this dram. And with that, again, thank you very much for all the support of the Malt Muser Whiskey Review channel. I look forward to coming back with some more reviews in 2023. Sláinte, y'all.